Hey, Shakers, we're here today with Greg Hickman. Greg, thanks for joining the Handshakin video series.
Thanks for having me.
Shakers, we got the Handshakin sunglasses here. We keep opening and going through a lot of these on these interviews, and we're starting to run a little low, so we just ordered hundreds more. Get your free pair today by applying to the Handshakin Startup Pre-Accelerator at handshakin.com. Greg, your sticker's still on your glasses.
Same with you.
So, we're with Greg Hickman. Greg, could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I started really in an advertising agency out of college and worked for a company out of Connecticut that represented Pepsi and Unilever and did the whole project management, account management there. And that's when I knew like I really wanted to be focused in marketing. But it was a huge company. There was 250 people in our office. The headquarters was in Dallas with another 200 people, and we were working with massive clients, which was cool in the beginning. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship, but after 2 years, I went to a much smaller company, 7 people out of a house.
Wow.
The company had been around for a while, like 7 years, but it was a small like promotional company, and they did mobile marketing. And this was in 2007. Actually, sorry, 2005. And this is before the iPhone. So like, what was mobile marketing? We were doing like text message marketing for a bunch of professional sports teams.
Wow.
Which was really cool. Worked with the New York Jets, Florida Marlins, and some other teams. And that's when I fell in love with mobile. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. And the iPhone came out, and I was like, okay, game changer. Like, I'm in the right place. And stayed there for a couple of years. But still, like, I love the atmosphere of a small company, and really wanted more startup. And a friend of a friend had started kind of like an online marketing company, and I had the opportunity to like go work with him with the intention of building out like their mobile division, which never happened and still hasn't happened. So I went on as kind of like biz dev, and I was the third person in the company, and like that was full on startup. And that's when I knew I was like, okay, like I like startups, but I still really wasn't like sure that I was ready to do my own company, but I wanted to be involved in like a small startup environment.
And what year are we at this point?
So that was basically late 2007 to 2008.
Okay.
And that's actually what brought me out to Denver, Colorado. Our CTO was out here, so I moved out here, and actually the whole company moved out here. Grew to like 13 people.
Nice.
But then I ended up leaving in early 2009. Mainly because the whole mobile promise never really ended up coming to fruition, and that's something I wanted to focus on. So that's kind of when I left that company, and I really had no plan. So I started a little consultancy doing mobile stuff, mobile strategy for a lot of our old clients previously, and that was kind of like my first stab at like starting anything. But again, at that point, I still wasn't like I'm an entrepreneur or anything like that. I just was like, I need to make money, and this is what I know and I like, so I'm going to try to figure it out. And that company started to evolve into the first failure.
So, well, go ahead, keep telling us the story. What went wrong?
Yeah, so partnered with 2 guys, one tech guy and another partner that I had worked with at the first mobile agency. And he actually was simultaneously doing a lot of mobile work for ESPN. So he had like the big brand name, but no one could know that he was like involved in a startup. We didn't really know who our customers were or what we wanted to be. That was the main problem. We had been using all of these different text message marketing softwares that were out there, and we're like, we could do this better, and just tried to start building our own with like no intention of like who's going to be using this thing. Didn't talk to any customers. Like we just like went in this silo and built, and then tried to sell this thing, and it was not easy selling it. And that basically did that for, we're just making ends meet. I was the only one that was full-time. The other 2 guys were part-time. And just like, we weren't making enough money, and it was just kept going on. And then I pitched this one agency that I thought would be like kind of a big deal for us if we landed it. And it ended up working out where like they just wanted to hire me. And at that point it was like, it was my out to make more money and also just like kind of put an end to this thing that was dragging on for way too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I launched a similar effort with someone who was working full-time in a corporate position, and that just gets in the way. It's just not fair when you're full-time and they're not.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really challenging. We weren't in the same place. and the other guys obviously had the full-time job, and one of the tech guy had like 2 startups that he was like actively building. They're a little more than startup, but his main focus was clearly there. So definitely a lot of challenges. My biggest lesson there was that I let it go too long. So worked at this other agency for 3.5 years while starting to build something on the side. And this is kind of where I realized like the whole relationship stuff was really, really powerful. You have like your kind of mentors, I guess, within the organizations you're at. But the company I was working at was still small. There was like 18 of us. But I was the only mobile person, and like that's kind of why I got hired. And mobile, so this is late 2009, early 2010, and they brought me on as the mobile person, and there was no one else that knows mobile. So like I wanted to learn more. Most of what I had learned was through experience, and I needed to find mentors that had done more than I had in mobile. Because I did get started in it really early, which is an advantage, but that means there was way fewer people that actually had more experience, but there were people that had more experience. So this is kind of around the time where I started reading blogs and podcasts and, starting to follow online entrepreneurs. And, a lot of people were doing podcasting and creating content and creating an audience. And I saw people that were doing like side-by-side interviews, interviewing people, and that's kind of what drew the audience. So I said, okay, well, there's no one talking about mobile. I'm going to start a podcast and a blog where I interview people that I thought were doing cool things in mobile, purely selfish reasons, to like maybe one of these people will like offer me a job, or it'll lead to a consulting opportunity. No intention of like, oh, this is going to become an audience. And lo and behold, after doing interview after interview, like I started building relationships with these people and found mentors and people that I still talk to since then till today. Then I just noticed that people were paying attention. So I was like, okay, now I have an audience. People are signing up to my email list. Like, what am I doing here? And that's when I really dove into, okay, how can I start monetizing this? How can I turn this content into some sort of business? And I think that was when, like, I started the podcast again, like purely selfish to like build these relationships. And it hadn't really like hit me where it's like, this can be a business. And that's when I started researching and saw that there were other people out there doing it. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to focus on.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So I'm anxious to dive into how community has gone with all that. But before that, tell us a little bit more about what's happening today.
Yeah, so today there's kind of two businesses. And you kind of catch me at a time where it was interesting because I started a mobile agency, and we do done-for-you campaigns for independent retail companies. And that came from this podcast and blog that I did some info products and things like that, online training, but people kept asking for us to do the work. And so we started taking on a client here, a client there. And I came into 2015 saying it's going to be the year of like, we're just going to focus on service. And it's been a slow start with the service part. And kind of up until maybe like 30 days ago, to be honest, I was like full on that mission. And I said, okay, I need to validate to see if there's something else that I could be doing that will be able to make money faster. And I had gotten certified in Infusionsoft, which is a sales and marketing automation tool. So I started asking people that I knew were using it, like, do you need help? And basically started a done-for-you sales and marketing automation and funnel building service for online entrepreneurs. So now I get to work with people that I want to work with, people that are doing things that I enjoy and am passionate about, versus people that like are in retail and have like a brick and mortar store. Not that there's anything against that. It's just I get more excited about working with online entrepreneurs. So right now there's Mobile Marketing Engine. There's a handful of customers there that we service, and the new business, which is called Systemly, system.ly, has 10 customers, which all came in the last 30 days, and that business is already making more money than the mobile agency.
Nice. Hey, Greg, do you have a card? Can we talk about that infusion shop? So while we're on this, one more question. What's your opinion on Infusionsoft versus HubSpot?
Interesting question. So first, I would say I don't know much about Infusionsoft other than like probably what you might know about them. I've never used their tool. I've used their CRM tool, which I still use and I still like. their price points are just way higher than what I was expecting, or at least what I would be using.
You said Infusionsoft. You meant HubSpot.
Sorry, HubSpot. Yeah,
Okay.
HubSpot. I don't use HubSpot. So I mean, I've heard people that love it. I think from what I've seen, it's a different audience that's using one versus the other. I'm seeing a lot of like content marketing agencies or like B2B software companies that are leveraging content use HubSpot, and I'm seeing a lot of like online entrepreneurs, small business owners that have like a brick and mortar home services are using Infusionsoft. From my perspective,
yeah, we got accepted into HubSpot's Jumpstart program. But
Nice.
the more I look into it, it seems like Infusionsoft might be a better match for a company that's still smaller and has smaller resources. I feel like HubSpot, you might need someone to really manage all of that.
well, so you might need that for Infusionsoft too, depending on how tech savvy you are. Which is why the new business is thriving actually, because Infusionsoft has kind of like a reputation, has been called Confusionsoft. So it just makes sense to me, and I've hired people that get it. And regardless of who you are and what type of business you have, like you shouldn't even be spending your time there anyway. You should be like people that are creating content, like they need to be a content machine. And by them being inside of HubSpot, Infusionsoft, whatever tool, that's preventing them from doing what they're good at and what's going to help them grow. So that's why our service is actually working, because it lets the online entrepreneur do what they're supposed to be doing to grow their business. So, but yeah, it's definitely a tool. I look at those tools, and if you, I think, implement them correctly, you have to look at it as an employee, because it can do a lot of the things that you normally do over and over and over again.
Yeah. That's great. So Shakers, we're still going to pause here. I got to pick Greg's mind a little bit more. What are some of your other favorite online softwares that you use?
Right now, love Trello. We were using this tool called Teamwork, which is also another great tool if like you're an agency or a service-based company and your clients need insight into where the project is. But ours isn't that way. We just kind of have tasks and projects that we're working on that kind of go through this flow, and we're all very visual. So, a task comes in and it makes its way kind of through the card style layout, which is like called Kanban or Agile development, is kind of the tools that leverage that. So love Trello, super simple. And we also use Help Scout, which is like basically the incoming requests from customers. It's just a help desk tool, which is also fantastic. Those are probably my two favorite right now.
Do you use Zapier?
We do a little bit for a few things, and a lot of our customers use it too. I had used Trello for personal stuff and then left it for the business, but now we're back on it for the business. So I'm sure now that we're getting back into it, that we're going to need Zapier for some of the things to connect to Trello. But it's a great feature and functionality.
And Shakers, for those of you who don't know what Zapier is, first of all, make sure to research all of these online tools. They're freaking awesome. And but Zapier is pretty sweet. We just got set up on it. So when a Handshakin guest like yourself schedules an interview, there's now a folder that pops up in Google Drive. There's a couple action items that pop up on Trello, our to-do software, the card style. It's great. And it also posts our Facebook business page saying, we just scheduled an interview with Greg Hickman. Whoa! So good stuff. So I guess we should probably head on to community and talk about what we're supposed to, right, Shakers? That's what you guys are used to. So Greg, could you walk me through? It sounds like you've kind of built your own communities in some ways, but walk me back to your first experience with that first company. Were you a part of an entrepreneurial community back then?
No. At the agency, the agency where I was at right out of college, it was a community in that a lot of the employees that were there were all like the same age. We're all 1 or 2 years out of college, and we all bonded. We all hung out together outside of work. It was literally like a family. But no, I wasn't thinking entrepreneur or anything. In my mind at that point, I was like, I want to be in marketing for a big brand or a big agency that represents brands. Yeah. So there was no entrepreneurial thought at the time.
Mm-hmm. And now kind of walk me from there to now I know you're part of a mastermind group, at least one. Kind of how has community and masterminds played into your success? Yeah,
so critical. And I've been through multiple masterminds. I'm assuming you've explained masterminds before on the show. So when I first kind of left corporate and started working for myself, I hired a business coach locally here, and he had a part of his program was a mastermind, and we met once a month, and there was 8 of us in a group. We'd go down to his office and we'd be there for 5 hours, and each of us would go on the hot seat and focus on what challenges we had. And it was a real diverse group. There was only one other person that was sort of doing online business. They were like a graphic designer building websites, but the other people were like accountants and real estate agents and stuff like that, people flipping properties. So early on, it was good to have that like diversity. But as I started figuring out what I wanted to do, I realized that I needed to be around more like-minded people. And I had gone to a conference, which if you want to talk about communities, having an online community and meeting people online is great. But once you go and you meet these people face-to-face, it totally changes your relationship. And I went to New Media Expo early 2013, and that's where I met a lot of people that I had been building relationships with online. People like Pat Flynn and John Lee Dumas, and me and John hit it off. And leaving that event, we're like, well, why don't we start a mastermind? Awesome. And really, it was just us two having a weekly call, kind of accountability, and literally, I mean, we've had a call every Wednesday. We've missed a few here and there from scheduling purposes, but like pretty much every Wednesday since January of 2013. And we've since added another guy, Rick Mulready, who's a Facebook marketing guy, and we have a mastermind every Wednesday. And that's been great because we're all kind of in the same space. Since my business is now a little bit more service, I'm a little bit different from them, but that allows me to give a really nice perspective and a different angle on what they're doing, and also it's a refreshing view on what I'm doing. But I mean, like, we're in my house right now, right? So like my office is right back there. Like, you're alone a lot as an entrepreneur, especially when you're starting. If you're not in like a co-working space and that's not your thing, or you don't have funding and you have other team already, you're by yourself. And these people that are in your mastermind become like family, like advisors, like co-founders in a lot of ways. And if it weren't for these people, I don't know where I would be. Like, I mean, they're my therapists too. It's like all of that. Yeah. So, and since then, as I think it's important the main key for me there was to have people that were like-minded and doing similar things. And as my business shifted to more of like a productized service, I went out and started another mastermind with 3 other guys that are building productized service businesses, SaaS companies, because there's really a lot of alignment there. And so I have 1 call a week with each of those groups. And actually they happen to both be on the same day. So it's kind of like my Wednesday is like mastermind day. Yeah. And it's been really, really helpful because we're all going through same things. And we're all within kind of the same stage, not necessarily from revenue or anything like that, but like from concept to execution, and we're going through a lot of the same challenges. So that's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, man, Shakers, that's great. So many of our past guests say, an entrepreneurial community can benefit you, but you also want to focus on a community that's relevant to what industry you're in. And whether that community is a co-working space, if that is your thing, or just a mastermind and accountability buddies, right?
Accountability buddy, yeah.
Accountability buddies, right, Chandler? So let's go ahead and move on to expert feedback. Kind of how do you get in front of people that are hard to access? You already alluded that a conference can be a great way to meet, kind of high up people that you've already tried to reach out to, but could you speak a little bit on your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, like, I'll give kind of a story that aligns really well with how I got to where I'm at and the relationships I've been able to build that I think any single person listening can replicate. So when I started doing those interviews, and I was trying to get better at interviews, so I started watching other people that doing interviews and had podcasts, and one of the people that I came across was Pat Flynn from smartpassiveincome.com, and just everything he was about like resonated with me, like his personality, the way he like puts family first, like everything. And I was like, I need to get this guy on my podcast. And so I'd be engaged on his blog, I'd make comments, I'd share his stuff, he'd say thanks, like, so, he started to see my name, in the blog comments with hundreds of other people. But then I was like, I heard that he had an app company on the side that kind of was one of his passive revenue streams. So I was like, boom, apps, mobile, like I can get him on my show. So I invited him on my podcast, and at the time it was a video, like I said, side by side. So, I got to sit there and talk with him for an hour, just about his business, and, we got to create that face-to-face recognition. And from that point, that was like, I interviewed him in like a May or June, and, maybe August, I said, hey, starting to look at some conferences, like, can you give me some recommendations? Someone that doesn't have a lot of money to spend, just getting started. What conference would you go to if you were me? And he's like, New Media Expo. It's in Vegas in January. Come. He's like, be sure to come say hello. I was like, all right, cool. I bought my ticket that day. Bought a flight to Vegas, and I mean that was that was August, and the conference was in January. So basically, I needed to do, in my opinion, like I needed to maintain that relationship and get it to the point that it didn't just flop dead, and when I walk up to him in January that, he forgot who I was. Yeah. So, every once in a while I email him a very short, very specific question. I continue to comment, share his stuff, engage with him on social media. And then I went to the conference and, saw him in the hallway, and I was like walking up to him. He's like, Greg, what's going on? And I was like, whoa, like, dude, remember my name. And we shook hands and we started hanging out. We hit it off. And then a friend of mine, a mutual friend, or became a mutual friend, I kind of like made my way through the whole conference with this guy. His name is Caleb Wojcik. He used to be on a podcast called Fizzle. Now he has a site called DIY Video Guy. Nice. And he does a lot of Pat's video work. And basically, we were just all hanging out, and Pat's like, hey, I'm going to have a few people over in my room before we go out later. Like, do you want to come? I was like, yeah, for sure. So go up to that room, and it was like all the movers and shakers. Like, we're in that room. Like, in that room, I met most of the people that I now know. Rick Mulready, who, is now part of my mastermind. That's when I met, really met John and got to know him better. People like Amy Porterfield, Jeremy Franzen, and Jason Van Orden from Internet Business Mastery. All these people that were doing like exactly what I wanted to be doing. And, I've been saying, I've been writing this blog post. Actually, I had started it, but I never published it. And it was called Awesome by Association, and, Guilty by Association. But like, you're in this room and there's maybe like 18 people, right? And a lot of us didn't at that time, like a couple of us knew who each other were, but there were a lot of people in that room that others didn't know. And like, I remember Jeremy Franzen saying like, if you were in that room, so I just assumed you were a baller. And I was like, you were in that room too. Like, this is invite only. Like, I assumed that you guys were all crushing it. And, like, that's how, like, I got in that group, so to speak. But, that was just like one event, right? And I had to maintain all those relationships moving forward. So it was definitely in the follow-up. Like, I engaged with them afterwards, we exchanged emails, we Skyped each other. I went to all of their communities and said, hey, like, you guys need to be talking about mobile. Like, can I do a guest blog? Can I, join you on your podcast? And, one thing led to another, whereas like I was getting guest blog post experiences on all of these popular blogs. I was on Amy Porterfield's podcast. I was on their podcast. I was on Social Media Examiner. And then I got to speak at Social Media Marketing World. So like all of it just happened from like, take that experience, leverage it, get to the next point, and just keep working it.
Yeah.
But the key there is that if I had gone to that conference and I was like, I'm going to build relationships with all of these people. Like I have to have relationships with all these people. It never would have happened. Like my only intention was like, if I leave this conference and I don't have a better relationship with Pat, then it's a failure. So I think without doing this consciously, I think focusing on that one person, like allowed me to meet all those other people in the way that like it ended up working out and being successful. But like if I was like trying to divide my effort to like go meet everybody that was in that room separately, I don't think I'd have the relationships that I now have.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the Handshakin founders that we just accepted, I just saw last night, and he said, I'm done. I was like, what do you mean? We were at an event, Denver New Tech Shakers, if you're here in Colorado. And he said, I'm done. I said, what does that mean?
Yeah.
He's like, I have 5 cards. I have no more capacity. I'm focusing on
Yeah.
no more than 5 quality relationships. And just to add to your point, that's great. And holy fucking shit, Shakers, this is so exciting. We're finally walking the talk. We love tech startups. But at the end of the day, my job here at the Handshakin video series is to provide you guys awesome content. And I'm finally meeting with an awesome content provider. And we're breaking in the same way Greg broke into that hotel room. Hopefully, hopefully, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're having fun,
Yeah.
So get out there, you know. Don't try to meet everyone. Narrow it down to one focus or a minimal amount of focus.
Yeah.
And face to face too. Another point you mentioned earlier. I mean, meeting someone face to face, I think, is getting only more valuable, Shakers, as we have more and more notifications and pictures of people on our phones and laptops and tablets. And it's really the people you actually spend time with in person where you're going to be able to develop the best relationships.
Yeah, I mean, like being able to tweet at someone and whatever, direct message them or post on Instagram to people, even if they respond and you've never met them in person, I mean, the second you meet them and that can become a text message or a phone call or like, heck, a physical piece of mail, like, I mean, it totally changes the relationship and like you become a part of their world and like they'll take you more seriously, you're more important to them, you become more of their inner circle. And I know one of my kind of constant people that I look at from a business perspective is a guy by the name of Noah Kagan, who runs a company called AppSumo out of Austin, really smart entrepreneur. And I had the chance to meet him at an event in person, and like he spent probably all of the event like focused on just talking to me. And like we went off to the side of the room and he basically, you know, said something to me that I still leverage is like, you know, when I come to these events, like it's not worth it to me to go get 50 business cards or talk to 50 different people. He's like, if I find one person that I resonate with, I'm going to go as deep as possible during that event with that person and build an actual relationship, because that one relationship will turn into more than the surface relationships that I make with the 50 people and the 50 business cards. So like, I really usually don't bring business cards to events and I don't ask for business cards. Usually I'm just looking for, you know, that person that I can like click with and have a conversation and like continue around the event with and have some wine or whatever we're drinking that night. And you know, those relationships have always become way more valuable than the business cards I collected.
Yeah, that's awesome. Lots of what we would have in the past kind of called knowledge bomb Shakers, but we're finally interviewing someone who knows John Lee Dumas, and we've apologized a few times. We don't want to stomp on his coined term. Greg, what should we call him if it's not knowledge bombs?
Well, I don't know if he coined knowledge bombs. Is that like a thing that he coined that?
Maybe it's not.
I'll give him credit for it. I don't care. But I feel like knowledge bombs were around for a while. But hey, John, I'll give you credit for it.
Well, then we'll stick with knowledge bombs for now. Shakers.
Smart bombs?
Smart bombs.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we tried white pearls. Like, no, it's knowledge bombs. And keep dropping them.
Shake bombs?
Yeah, shaker bombs. We're trying to figure that out, too. So
let the community decide. Shakers, what should it be called?
Yes, tweet us what the new knowledge bomb should be called at Handshakin. All right, Shakers, get out there. We're moving on to the next topic, mentors. Greg, who was your first mentor and what did that look like?
I'd have to say that my first mentor, I mean, from an entrepreneurial perspective, it kind of came in this mobile world as I was interviewing people. His name is Bruce Hershey. He's actually still one of my mentors and now good friends. Talk to him pretty frequently. He's just like is like the guru when it comes to anything mobile. So he's started and sold businesses, so he kind of has the entrepreneurial you know, chops and experience, but he also had the mobile experience, which aligned really well with me. And he's like the first one that I would really consider like an entrepreneurial business mentor.
Sweet. And what year was that?
2012 is when that relationship started.
And how's mentorship changed in your career from 2012 to today in 2015?
I feel like you can define mentorship in a lot of different ways, and it's going to be different for everybody. But I mean, like my relationship with Bruce is, you know, I'll go to him with feedback or questions where he'll give me feedback, and you know, he comes to me with ideas as well. And you know, it's really just kind of having like a sounding board to have, you know, bounce ideas off of, and have someone with more experience kind of maybe point you in the right direction, or tell you not to worry about certain things that you might be spending too much time on. But one thing I like, where a mentor and then you have a coach, so like I had hired a coach too, like I find that coaches, in my experience, are way more involved from an accountability perspective. So like with someone like Bruce, like, I actively go to them and stay engaged. They'll reach out to me and check in every once in a while, but like they're not checking in with like, hey, you said you were going to do this, what's the status of that? Whereas like a coach who you're paying, it does do that. And I think there's a lot of value in the accountability side of that. But at the same time, you could also look at a coach as a little bit of a mentor. They've been where you want to get to. But I mean, I look at like mentorship also to me is like the person that you look at as your mentor might not actually know that they're your mentor, right? I mean, especially with like the way we consume content. I mean, I've listened to tons of podcasts religiously, and like those people, while maybe I've never met them, like I look at them as mentors because I resonate with their message and I'm taking their guidance. I mean, I read a lot of books and I implement what I learn in books in a lot of cases. Yeah. So like those authors in some way, shape or form are mentors to me and teachers, and so I think, it depends on how you look at it. I kind of look at it, I think, a little bit looser where, those people that are the author or, the podcast host or just, whatever. What's the guy's name from The Prophet? Marcus Leonis or whatever. Yeah. Leonis. I look at that guy as a mentor. Like I've watched like every episode of that show. It's a brilliant show and I've learned a bunch. Do I know the guy? Not at all. Will I ever meet him? Maybe. Am I trying to meet him? Not really, but I'm learning a lot from him that I could consider him as a mentor too. So I kind of keep that loose. And then like the mastermind partners are the kind of people that's like, I kind of look at those as advisors, accountability buddies, and all that.
That's cool, Shakers, and that's what we're learning. It's best to keep it informal, and a mentor can be even your customer. A customer can be 100%. A mentor. But I think the main point to drive away is it's important to connect with a community or mastermind to kind of, people on the same page as you, so you can know what the next step is and stay focused. And then it's also important to reach high where you want to end up at the end of the day and connect with those people too. And one point that we've highlighted a couple times here, Greg, that is just so important, Shakers, and we hear so often is keep it concise and specific. Know exactly what your ask is and make it short. And with Pat Flynn, before you went to the conference in January and you had communicated with him in August, you kept it going and you communicated with him, but only very, very respectful this time. Which is just key, especially when you're reaching up here, Shakers, to where you want to be in a few years versus just next month. So good stuff, Greg. Anything else to add to that?
I think you can, I guess, kind of trip over yourself if you only leverage social media and you don't make that extra effort to get into meet in person. So the faster you can do that, the better. Which is why I kind of resonate with the Shakers part, like the handshake. Obviously, a digital handshake, whatever you can call it, a digital handshake, but like nothing compares to like a physical handshake, eye to eye, and making that physical connection.
Absolutely, it changes it all. Get FaceTime with your mentor, Shakers, and also we do like digital handshakes. You guys should tweet us a digital handshake. How do you digitally handshake someone?
I don't know.
I don't know either. There needs to be. Wait, there might be an emoji for
there's
that.
Probably. Isn't there the emoji that's like this? But I'm not sure if it's. There's the hand. I think there's one.
There's like two. We can't figure out which is an official.
If not, someone in the Shaker Nation or whatever will create it, right?
Yeah. Please create it. That's second design. So, all right, Greg. So we're on to the last topic. What is one action item that the Shakers can do immediately after watching this video to help them on their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So to kind of continue what we've been talking about, I would say identify one person, not two, not three, not four. One person that is someone that you align with from their vision. Doesn't have to necessarily be the business that they have, but maybe the way they conduct their business, and start engaging with them on social. If you have the opportunity to meet them in person right away, go for it, but start getting involved with their community, become a part of their community, and create that opportunity to meet them in person as soon as possible. You have to pick the person, you have to be intentional about it, and I'd give yourself a deadline.
Yeah, deadlines are good.
Deadlines you move.
Well, get out there, Shakers. Meet that one person right away. Greg, if we want to find you online, where can we find you?
On Twitter is probably the easiest place, at GJ Hickman, or you can find me on my main website, my personal site, greghickman.me.
Cool. GJ Hickman, thanks for joining the Handshakin video series.
Thanks for having me.
Shakers, we'll see you later.